Pivot, and we are doing a very important, very in demand session today, which is landing top project and program management roles in 2026. So this is one of the most popular questions that we have received in the recent past from Pivot's community, which is a lot of folks who have been working in primarily, I would say, the tech sector, working in the project and program management roles, are seeing a confluence of factors that are leading to a lot of shifts in the way companies are hiring and managing folks who are working in these roles. And things that were working a specific way just a couple of years ago might not be functioning the same exact way today. So we have two industry experts and very experienced professionals within the field who are just waiting backstage with me, and I'm going to bring them up to the stage now. All right, great. Hi, Shishadri and Edward. Good to see you guys. How are you both doing?
All good.
Hi,
Life is
all good. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you so much for making time for this. Really appreciate your time. This is something that we have been thinking about doing for a while now because I think, Edward, I was discussing this with you the other day. There is a lot of sea change happening in project management. I think you had also shared certain, material, certain information, kind of validating the amount of change that people in this role are undergoing right now. And so the goal of this particular session was to really unpack that, right? Really understand what has changed. Obviously, AI is one of the biggest factors, but apart from that, you have GCCs coming in to India in a very big way. You also have certain workforce restructuring, business restructuring happening for many of the IT companies right now. So there's a lot of moving pieces, and I'm excited to uncover all of that. But before we do that, just maybe we can do a quick round of intros. Yeah? Okay. I'll just quickly go first because there might be people who don't know me yet. So, first off, my name is Arjun and I'm the founder of Pivot. I have worked in HR consulting for about 10 years, both in US as well as in India. After which I started Pivot. And the goal for Pivot was to help mid career professionals achieve their most ambitious career goals, especially when they're going through some sort of an inflection point. So thinking about people who change their level in the organization, or change their industry, or change their domain, sometimes even changing their countries, right? So these are the type of inflection points that we focus on. We'll cover more during the course of this conversation about what Pivot does and other things related to it. But for now, I'll turn it over to Edward first. Edward, welcome again. And if you could just share a little bit about your journey and what you do today, that'd be great. And then I'll turn it over to Shishadri.
okay. Great. Thank you. Thank you, Arjun. Excited to be part of this session. I have about 24 plus years of experience in both in the Indian and the global markets. I've been into project program management, portfolio management, head of PMO, head of global delivery, and moved into uh, handling panel roles in terms of delivery, technology transformation, and business transformation. And currently, I'm also handling AI transformation as a part of expansion of roles. And I've been also into strategy and transformation roles in the past. Happy to share that experience for people who will be looking forward how they can branch from where they are as a part of the session. Thank you.
Perfect. Great. Thanks so much, Edward. And Shishadri, floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you for having me, and nice to be in this forum. So, my name is Sheshadri Chatterjee, and I'm having approximately 20 years of experience, majority in the tech sectors. But I, have worked in different industries like oil and gas, retail, and some of the other, industries as well. So, in the past, I've worked in IBM, HP, and Microsoft as well, and three different kinds of companies as a whole, like from product manager service as well as the hardware in the segment as well. But skill set wise, I was a project manager especially for SAP platform for nearly 5 years during my IBM time. And I have also done my certification, like a PMP certification as well as Prince 2 from a project management perspective. I'm currently looking at digital transformation projects, and especially from the adoption perspective, from the client side to our own internal site as well. So this is a small introduction, and I hope in the course of our discussion we'll have more things to discuss. So thanks all of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. So let's dive right into it. I think the first thing that I want to start off with is a little big picture factors here. And, we have come across a lot of not just reports like survey reports and research reports, but also many on the ground insights and questions from our community of, more than 25,000 people who follow us, that there has been a huge amount of change in the last just 1 year. Not even, since like chat gpt came on scene in 2022, 23, but even just within last year, how business transformation and ai's impact on it is happening within tech, not just in india but globally. So what I want to start off with is maybe, Edward, getting your thoughts on perhaps the top two or three factors which you believe are changing the project management and transformation landscape in the tech industry in India today.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you. Uh, See, I'll take about the last 25 to 30 years and put in as a timeline when I'm explaining about it. See, when we had your early 2000s, so that was a time like organizations were busy connecting. So you will find a lot of IT infrastructure projects like networking, storage, data centers. So between your 2000 to your 2010, you had a lot of IT infrastructure projects because I mean customer organizations across different industries, they were connecting. Uh, I would say like okay, they were in the process of from manual to digitizing, right? Their IT infrastructure, which are the foundational aspects. So I would say anything and everything which goes into a data center or an endpoint in terms of network security, data storage, backup, uh, all of that, including compute put together. So that's the kind of a transformation which was going in. So project management, which is involved in was that, and then parallelly you had your client server architectures and mainframe kind of projects, okay, which were coming in. So project and program managers were handling that. And your 2010 to 2020, I would say like okay, that was a time of your smack, which is your social, mobile, analytics, and your cloud, right? So those technologies had to ride over the technology foundation which came in right before that, which is your 2000 to 2010, right? And so that matured, and that was a time your crm started maturing, your sap or your erp started getting into it. You had a lot of itsm and service management platform, your hrmis, right? Your manufacturing, because you need to have your base in place before you start connecting and having conversations between through the digital platform. So that's where like okay, your platforms, right, started coming to picture, right? And beyond that, so your from your 2020 to till now, right, that has been the acceleration of it, because of your last 2.5 to 3 years, because of your ai. And ai was there all along, but it was maturing as your basic ai ml, your basic neural models and other stuff like okay, your regression. So these were all like okay, your basic stuff on ai which was there. So your gen ai started coming in your actually in 21 to 2022, right? And from there like okay, your ai agents must be like around 1.5 years old. Like okay, another 6 months has been like okay, people are talking about agentic ai, and people are visionary looking at your agi. The definition could vary from company to company and industry to industry. But what is the key message which I want to say is every decade there's been a set of technology which has been a gradual evolution which has been built over the next one which is coming in, right? and and what I mean to say is So as you started the conversation, change has been constant, right? And you cannot stop it. So like you say, like, okay, every 3 months the entire human body, right, then all the blood cell changes. So change is by definition is there, like, okay, in the human system. So the nature itself says that, like, okay, accept that change will be inevitable and make it as a part of your flow. If you keep that, then project management and program management is the only field of management and science which deals with managing two things: either creation, okay, or change, right? Changing from old to new, right? And in especially in the technology field, creation and change is, that means migrating from old to new, is going to be a part and parcel of stuff. And project and program managers are the folks, like, okay, who are majorly required. But what we are seeing is, when you're doing through a bigger level of change which is going to impact a whole lot of people, beyond a smaller set of units across the entire company, right?
Hmm.
At a technology level or at a business metric level, then you get into transformation, which
Yeah.
will involve either technology or at a business level. So that's where, like, the journey is moving into, even in terms of advancement of this particular field. So I would say project management, program management, portfolio management, and beyond that, like, okay, it branches into your transformation management. It could be either horizontal technology transformations or at a business transformation level, right? So all of these are, like, okay, branching advancement, and this field will continue to remain as long as any industry or any company is going to go through two set of items, which is either creation or probably change, right?
Yeah.
This field will continue to be there, because without them, like, okay, you will not be able to handle anything around the company, right? So the names might change, a little bit of tasks might change,
Yeah.
but this would be there.
Got it. No, very helpful. I think I especially like that you kind of connected it to not just what's happening in the last couple of years, but entire decades. And there are patterns that can we can learn from in the prior decades to see, hey, what did we do well, what did we not, and how do we make sure we are applying the new technologies, whether it's AI, or whether we are setting up GCCs which didn't used to exist that much earlier. Like, what are the things that work well, and how do we make sure we continue to double down on those things? Um, Shishadri, want to loop you in into this particular conversation as well. So, your same kind of question, which is according to your vantage point where you are, what are the top two or three factors you think are impacting the entire tech ecosystem from a project program management, transformation management standpoint? Also, I want to maybe ask, if possible, to highlight those two or three specific factors that especially you feel are taking shape in the last, let's say, 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, maybe I'll just be kept in a very brief one. So first of all, I think Edward has given a very big kind of landscape about how the project management as a stream has evolved over the years.
Right.
And just to highlight, whenever I also did, I started my career way back 2005. That was more like a structured based project management. So project manager has to do like scheduling, budgeting, and task management and things like that. So that was very much specific and maybe more defined. But I said, like, in the last 4 to 5 years, I'll just want to bring that particular task in nature. So it is more like not too much actually defined as a project manager. So project manager as a role, although in the pen and paper there might be project managers, but it is not typically you can define the role of a project manager in the pen and paper. So that's the first change I am looking at. Second, yes, skill set is important, yes, very much important, but how to use different tools to improve your skill set, so that is there. But I would like to bring one point over here, is that your soft skill become more and more important as a project manager, beyond like your hard skill. So in a way that maybe I can it is easier to teach people than how to use different tools, but it's difficult more and more to actually how to develop your soft skill. And soft skill doesn't mean like your English speaking skill and things like that. So that how to negotiate in a tough environment, or how to make how to go to a client and actually maybe very disappointed client, and how to talk with the client to make sure that the client doesn't go to your competitors and things like that. Those, as a project manager, could be a niche skill set that the people might be in the industry looking at. And the third one, I would emphasis more on like people who are there experience. So a lot of people having experience with lot of tools and skill set, and various kind of quote unquote AI tools. So that is a constant, and it is not that we are stopping off learning things. So more and more new things comes on, and you have to constantly learn and learn and learn. So as a project manager, I may not know hundreds of tools, but what I know around different people who knows that tool, and I try to learn some of them. So having a skill set in a bunch of tools makes my life easier, because I don't too much I would say depend on my administrator to just brief a meeting, or making a presentation and things like that.
Hmm.
So that is why I think my skill set actually brings more and more quick tools which can quickly summarize the meetings, as well as make sure that I don't miss out the point, and also help me to track the project, how it is going on and what are the challenges. So I think these are 3 4 skill set which probably we are going to look at in the future course as well.
Got it. Um, well structured answer. So I think the part where you said that we have moved from a well defined role to kind of something that is not very well defined anymore, and kind of evolves. That is something that I want to double tap on actually. Edward, I want to get your take on that part actually, because I mean, you talked about how change is constant and things keep shifting around. So, what has changed the most in terms of last 2 years when we are talking about the role responsibilities for a project manager or program manager? I mean, it sounds like, see, the typical responsibilities are things that we probably or companies probably expect PMs to do, right? Which is, let's say, your budgeting, resource management, vendor management, etc., etc., timing, timelines of deliverables, etc. But those are almost kind of like table stakes today, right? They're almost a given. And then there are a bunch of these new things that both you and Shadri are pointing out. So I want to focus more on those new things. What are these new things that PMs
Okay.
are expected to do?
Interesting. So if you see, I would love to structure this into a pre 2020 and a post 2020 kind of structure, right? So how the PM roles have structurally started changing, right? So in terms of role definition, if you see, it was more just delivery focused in terms of pre 2020, right? But if you see post that, I would say the focus is more in terms of your driving towards value and outcome ownership, right? So before, if you see, people will either, if they're doing a TNM project, okay, they'll be more focused on putting in their efforts, clocking their bills, right? Or if they are working any kind of a fixed price kind of projects, be it in any industry, they would be focused on outputs, but nowhere the focus on outcomes. When I mean outcome, means it is business outcomes, right? So for the customer, it could be a technology engineering outcome, or it could be a business outcome. It could be a revenue, cost, maybe contribution margin, or your net margin, or your indirect cost kind of a outcome. Or maybe you're increasing sales, or probably increasing market expansion. Those are something like a business outcome. In terms of engineering outcome, means like, okay, you're going live with an application rollout in multiple say cities across the world, say 5 cities across the world, and based on that, somebody is able to go and take their product to the market. Could be a product or a service. So I'm talking about at the intersection of technology and business, right? Or completely business. That's the kind of a outcome where the project or program managers work like, okay, responsibility is trying to shift from a role point of view, especially. So if I have to put it across, um earlier, I mean, even now, you will find product companies and you will also find services company. But what we are seeing is, the intersection of product company roles, if any project managers would have been there, and the intersection of project managers from services company, if you intersect both, right, a mix and match of that coming into it. So there's a book called Project to Product, right? So it must be around some 7-10 years old, but we see that coming into action very much. So that's in terms of role definition. In terms of methodology, we used to
Hmm.
have waterfall for pretty some time and is still there, and agile projects for pretty some time, because each of that has its own way and place to be there. But we see that in post 2020, a lot of hybrid, where you use waterfall at some place, you have an agile at some place, but you need to have a vertical domain experience, and not only a vertical domain experience, but also have an idea about data analytics, cloud, AI. Because what is happening is, all these technologies which were there, was more backend, right? But because of the advancement of technologies, the technology led business outcome is becoming so closely interlinked. So the understanding of intersection of product, project, technology, vertical domain, all of that put together is getting involved even in the kind of the methodologies which the PMs have to involve. Be it like, for example, a BFSI will involve an agile project at scale, but probably a energy kind of a project, like, okay, would involve both an agile and a waterfall example. In terms of tools, if you see, there are structural shift in terms of, if you see, you must have used a Jira for an agile tracking, or an MS project for a waterfall kind of a tracking. And by the way, like, okay, MS project is stopped, so there are new guys are coming to come in. But today, AI will come and do a whole lot of that particular job, in terms of your budgeting, in terms of your project tracking, in terms of your reporting, in terms of your note taking, like Seshadri had mentioned, right? A lot of those areas, like, okay, AI will help the project manager to do it. So the project manager has to get acquainted to how you use your AI co-pilots or your agents, which are very specifically doing that, to make the job, like, okay, much faster. Why? Because the PM's job has to become more outcome focused, more value focused, and has to be more client focused, right? And AI will help in doing those jobs much better, faster, so that they
Yeah.
can focus on the important stuff which is there. Then stuff around more importance on stakeholder management is increased, right?
Right.
And in terms of scope, they would have been focused only on project execution. But today, they will have to look at the program view, they will have to look at strategy, they have to look at product, right? A blend of all of that. So, which means technical project manager, technology program manager, kind of expectation becoming table stakes now, right? So, if somebody is coming to it just saying, like, okay, I have a general project management background or experience, but I
Yeah.
don't know vertical domain or horizontal technologies, right? Or I don't understand products or platforms, right? That's not going to help them at all. And obviously, organization change management, executive communications, understanding what is value stream mapping, right? And obviously, like, okay, how you are able to drive leadership and governance when you are driving it with the final objective of, like a mini CEO, right? So
Hmm.
project manager or program manager is like a mini CEO, and they are in charge of that particular PNL. So if you take an entrepreneur mindset and treat like a mini CEO, then these are the skill sets, like, okay, where things are shifting to. So very steeply we see that from an input to output to an outcome value based focus is where, like, we see
Right.
that shifting to.
Right. Yeah, no, I think covered a lot, and I think a lot of it is very, very helpful to understand this sort of shift that's happening. Shishadri, Just to build on what Edward said, so one of the main things he highlighted was with regard to expectations from project managers to not just give the input, but or the output for that matter, but drive real business outcomes for the clients or for the internal teams. So, can you also help me understand, like, firstly, whether you agree with that and that is a shift that you are also seeing? Secondly, if so, like, what kind of things can mid-career professionals who have, let's say, within 10 to 20 years experience, what can they do to build more and more experience showcasing outcomes as opposed to just taking on a responsibility, fulfilling it, checking the box, and moving on to the next project? How can somebody focus more on showcasing results that are aligned with the business goals?
Yeah, thanks for putting me up. And I agree with what Edward has just highlighted.
Mhm.
I would actually do a little bit of kind of enhance what is he has actually said. So the project manager role now no longer a tactical role. It is more like a strategic role. So in a way, like I think pre-COVID and post-COVID, if I just come out with that one. So there is a very large number of people who are nowadays, working remotely. And as a project manager, I don't see often people are sitting next to me or next to in the office, and it is no longer very, I would say, organized in that sense. So it is important as a project manager that I must have some of the good matrices that are effective, not just like we are having some of the matrices, but how to track and what to track. So that becomes more and more important as a governance mechanism of the project has actually shifted just from day to day kind of operational kind of requirements to more strategic. Second, like as I said, like a tactical to strategic. Second shift is like there is a blurred kind of line between more like a domain specialist versus technical specialist. If I'm a very good at technology, but I don't understand any vertical, I don't understand the industry, it doesn't actually work in that way. Vice versa, if I am very good at the industry but I do not know multiple kind of technical skills, it may not also work in that way. So that timelining, or that line is actually going blur.
Yeah.
And we may not have in future like a more like a technical project manager or non-technical project manager kind of stuff. So it is going to be, you have to know the industry, you have to understand the outcome of that project and how it could enhance the efficiency or whatever value addition, I would say, to the companies or to the clients why you are doing so. The third thing which I would say, like from a strategy, more like a from the tactical to strategic, is like a project management is no longer dependent on only on certain kind of tools and kind of thing, as as you said, like AMS project, which we are using for a lot of times, and Jira and some of those other kind of stuff. So within that one, do I know that how to use some of the AI that is integrated within that particular tool? How do I actually use it? Maybe long times back, I'm having maybe 10 15 kind of slides over there which is coming out of a meeting, but can I make it in next 5 minutes, all of those slides, and can use it in the steering committee meeting? There are So that is what is typical. The last point I would say, like the stakeholder management becomes a critical, more like because it is a kind of remote kind of based. So if you are working in a like a single country kind of project, maybe it is a little bit easier. But if you're doing a multi-country multi-geography kind of project where you might have a different locations, different time zones, and the people different cultures. So not many people might be like to work at midnight or maybe early morning. So more and more projects will be in that nature, and yet it may not be like a single country focus. So more and more platforms are global in nature, and more we will see like a global project managers and the global projects. And these projects may not be from a scratch per se. This could be like a enhanced or incremental kind of projects where they have already implemented some of their technology into their system, but they now wants to advance that one with some kind of AI tools or maybe some other tools to actually enhance that. So those kind of projects are becoming more and more small in the I would say timelinings.
Yeah.
And we may not have like a 3 years, 5 years, 10 years kind of projects, which a very typical early days like SAP implementation of like a 5 years project. We may have more and more short duration project. Maybe a 6 months project is a long duration nowadays. Maybe 3 months people are expecting I to apply some of them. So those kind of smaller projects, small project management, typical different geography, remote locations, and using some tools, technologies, and also domain knowledge. So those are 5 6 important points. That is why I'm saying from tactical to strategic shift.
Wow. No, thanks for sharing that. Very helpful to understand that. Since we are talking about all of these macro changes that are happening at the company level, or let's say the industry level, I want to maybe shift the gears a little bit more towards the micro, which is helping individual understand how they can tackle all these changes that are happening around them. And many people we work with have, at least I would say 10 plus years experience, and they are already in, let's say, early project management or program management role, so they have some experience. Now let's take an individual who is, in this kind of a role and facing all of these sea changes around them, where methodologies might change, client expectations, company expectations are changing, and the tools that they have been using are also changing. What are the first, let's say, top two or three things that you would suggest? Edward, we'll start with you. What would be the top two or three things you would suggest to an individual like this in terms of structuring their alignment, the continued alignment with these expectations as they are evolving around them?
Okay, interesting question. So I would uh, put them into three, four major buckets, right? One is your horizontal technology. Another is vertical domain. Third is your whatever the science and art of whatever you can do in terms of your project and program management, which what your PMP or agile tells, which is your fundamental basics. And then strategy and leadership. So these are the four buckets, right? So they will have to gain experience in a balanced way in all of these four buckets. And that's when, like, okay, that's the way, like, okay, an ideal person will be able to move in that particular experience and get into leadership roles, either into delivery or into program leadership or portfolio leadership kind of roles, right? So there are paths to it. So if you get into any I'm taking IT, ICT, telecom, or maybe like, okay, semiconductor, right? Okay. And also like, okay, industry, vertical technology companies, right? Like your Temenos or Finacle of your BFSI. So what they should do is, first of all, ensure that any project which they do, right, it is trying to have at least not just one small portion of it, or maybe just one site implementation, right? It looks like, okay, they should be ready to go for taking a very large scale project, or be part of a large scale project which has multi technologies involved, or also you have any vertical flavor of technology being involved, right? So they should take that particular approach, uh, sponsor or go as an initiative, right? Put themselves up, like, okay, and pick up projects on that space, right? And once you do, at least between, if you assume like, okay, the person is 5-year old experience in that space, or probably like, okay, 10-year old, ensure that you are having at least 5 year experience either in a set of technologies, like you can say IT infrastructure, or maybe like okay enterprise software implementation, or maybe like okay any data analytics or data infrastructure, or maybe cloud, or maybe you can say service management application. These are all like horizontal technologies, maybe martech, crm, erp. All of these are like okay horizontal technology projects, right? And so somewhere like okay they should ensure that like okay they, that because the reason is the TAM, the total addressable market of customers having horizontal technology projects, will be far more than vertical technology projects, right? Because your vertical technology will go deep, right? So at any point of time you should have a plan B in place. Your plan B should be, right, horizontal technology projects you do. And parallelly, right, whenever time comes, like okay at least 2 to 3 years or 5 years, okay, they should also try to specialize in terms of any particular industry, right? Pick up an industry which typically will not get into any kind of a recession or probably seasonality in there, right? Like a travel industry, COVID comes, like okay that industry uh, got into a mode. Your logistics supply chain got stuck into that, right? Okay, but your FMCG, retail, consumer packaged goods, your healthcare, your BFSI, all of that, like okay, we're running in, right? So your government, federal also, like okay, keeps running in irrespective of that. So you have to figure out which vertical or industry. I'm not saying like okay, you should not go to any other industry, but figure out there will be some kind of an industry you will have an affinity towards, right? If not, try to have some kind of an understanding and figure out an industry. For example, I like BFSI. I've been into retail, CPG. I've been into TMT, telecom, media, and technology companies. Majorly in my experience, because I like that particular sector and I had that particular experience as well. While other sectors, okay, I had experience of getting into smaller kind of projects or programs, but I had a major exposure around this particular area. So I would say technology project experience, vertical project program experience, right? Ensure you are owning the customer, ensure or you're owning the project or the program PNL, so that you are able to build the strategy, right, and leadership experience, handling cross-functional distributed team across the world. And then your normal project program becomes your table stakes in that particular conversation, and it becomes differentiated, because then you will be able to say that I led probably a 10 million transformation deal,
Yeah.
doing a PNL of X and reduced the cost by 20%. Or maybe like okay, I handle cloud, AI, and data programs as a technical program manager, right? Or I reduced deployment time by 35% via automation and cost by 20%, right? So what happens is, that's when like okay, you are talking about technology engineering outcomes and your business value. The moment you're able to say that, then you're demonstrating accountability, ownership, span, right? And then you can put that into these four buckets. Then automatically you will stand out across, because somebody wants who has managed complexity, volatility, ambiguity, right, difficult stakeholders, right, and still handled a large span. So those people are very difficult to get. That's the reason. So when you, at any point of time in a company, if a large, complex, difficult customer project comes in, which has a lot of new elements of technology and customer and vendors and partnership being involved, you will find very few takers. So I would urge like okay, the upcoming project and program and portfolio or transformation professionals to jump in, right, and take that particular experience when you're younger, right? So that at a later point of time, when your energy or cognitive level like okay comes become a more sharper, right, your execution experience becomes very very helpful. Because as AI, if people would be following, agentic AI will not just create, it can coordinate, right? Which means it can execute, it can act, right?
Right,
It
right,
can
right.
create outputs. When it can create outputs, what will stand out as a project program or a transformation leader is, can you handle customer, can you handle business outcome, can you handle partnerships, Can you integrate? Can you orchestrate across complexity, across all of these elements, right?
Hmm.
Can you show leadership, right? Can you show vision, strategy, linking to our business outcomes? That will make somebody stand out. That's
Yeah,
what I.
I think very powerful message there in terms of things that will gain more importance in the. I mean, maybe they are already gaining importance in terms of what are employers prioritizing when making hiring and promotion decisions regarding PM candidates. Shishadri, I think some of this you had also voiced earlier. In terms of what individuals in this role should be looking at in terms of, like, for example, you had mentioned continuous upskilling, making sure you're
Yeah.
continuously learning the new tools, methodologies that are arriving on the scene. So, one of the things that I wanted to also talk about is, we're talking a little bit as if, let's say, a lot of program or project managers have full liberty to kind of focus on whatever projects, whatever domains they want. They have all the options available in front of them. Right? I mean, a lot of times what happens is what organization you work for and the kind of clients they might have, or the way they are staffing different people on different projects, the way they use certain tools and methodologies within their firm, you have to abide by that. You have to kind of follow suit to what that organization is doing. So sometimes people feel that they don't get enough exposure, they don't get enough opportunities to learn and grow with these new tools, technologies, at least in their place of work. So, what would you suggest, Shishadri? I mean, again, to individuals who are in this role, but they are not necessarily getting the kind of exposure, the projects that will help them grow further. What can they do? Is there anything that they can do apart from just following orders from the leadership that this is what you should be working on? These are the methodologies and projects you should be focusing on.
Yeah, and it's a very interesting and debatable kind of I would say topic, that working in an organizations where the organizations control majority of what you should do, what you should not do, and more like a micromanaging, I would say, to use the term, like a kind of thing, that where my boss sitting over there, and every day, every maybe moment, used to call me and say, okay, you need to do this these things. So but what I actually think, that those are the limited companies over there, but they are there. But I would suggest that if you have, if you are working in such an organization where you need to have like a not much of the liberty, or not much of like a option to choose some of those skill sets you want to be, or you want to go with some of the projects. So couple of things you can do on a very rapid basis. So first of all, learning is not a boundary per se. So if I am working in an organizations, the organizations are giving enough scope for me to learn, that is fine. But what happens if I want to build some of the skill set or some of the training that I do not actually get from the organization? Do I stop learning? The answer is absolutely no. So there are a lot of platforms, those are there. You can always, if you are having interest, if you are having a motivation to learn some skill set, I don't think nowadays you don't have platform to learn anything. So you can learn, believe me, you can learn everything if you have the motivation, and if you want to accelerate your career. So do take charge of your own career, and do not actually fully, I would say, depend on your boss. This is great if your boss is well, and kind of your organization is well versed. But if it is not, then don't totally kind of depend on your skill set and stuff like that, depend on your organization, but look
Yeah,
forward
Shishadri,
to
sorry,
something
sorry
that
to
you can
interject. Just one question there, right? Like, just to take an example,
yeah
let's say I'm working at an
yeah
organization where we have clients from primarily two or three industries, or maybe maximum four or five industries. And as Edward was saying earlier, and I think you also mentioned that you should work for certain
yeah
in demand roles or in demand type of projects. Industries also, you should work at the ones that are less seasonal, more kind of insulated to these seasonalities or cyclicalities. Now, if what if my company or where I am, I'm only primarily getting work from certain underperforming industries, right? For example, I mean, I don't have a specific example in terms of underperforming industry, but let's say somebody who keeps getting staffed again and again on the same type of projects with an industry, what can I do for that? So from methodology and tools perspective, I think there are things you can do on other platforms outside of your organization. But when we're talking about domain expertise, which both of you mentioned, right, like the vertical domain expertise,
Yeah.
what can one do to gain that knowledge?
Yeah, so that is what I said. It is a debatable topic, and a lot of organizations do not allow their people to work maybe on a voluntarily basis and form a group of people, and you
Yeah.
can always take part in a small projects outside of your organization if that is being allowed. So first of all, that is if you are having some kind of motivation and understand the your case is like you are having like a 2 or 3 industry vertical your organizations works, but you are trying to understand maybe a fourth or fifth kind of domain expert. So I would suggest that you work like you are talking about 10 to 20 years, somebody has worked like in a certain organization having certain skill set, certain domain understand or knowledge. So it is very hard at like a 20-year experience in BFSI domain. Suddenly you might have some experience in like oil and gas or maybe detail or just trying to jump. But having said that, if you are already having built your skill set into certain domain, so don't try to, I would say, change it abruptly like that without any kind of people. But if you are motivated, want to change your domain and things like that, then obviously the go to kind of people is to form a group of people, see that what is happening over there, and may try to participate over there. Maybe that may not actually belong to that your organization which is not able to give you. But also I would suggest discuss these things with your people manager, because majority of the people manager whom I have spoken to, they are not very much rigid nowadays. So if somebody comes to me and say, Sheshadri, I just I want to learn this skill or maybe this domain where I'm not getting the opportunity in this organization, what can I do? So
Mm.
discuss that one with your with your people manager or with whatever is the go-to person you are having. And that's the number one you can do. The second thing, obviously, if you are having a very good networking or very good kind of platform like yours, or maybe some kind of industry kind of organization like CII, FICI, some of those kind of a good industry kind of organization, participate over there, talk to the some of the leadership team, what is going on, what is how they can actually meet with these people and discuss about your interest and what they are looking for. So that may be a second set of kind of thing that you can also do, but without leaving your present kind of project. So I think this too, if you can quickly do this one without much of the hassle, then I think you are moving at the right direction. But you have to very much kind of plan, like why you are certainly want to change your domain after maybe 10 years or 15 years and want to go to a certain other domain. And believe me, most of the domain you don't have a particular domain nowadays which you can say like this domain is very bad or this domain is not working or things like that.
Yeah.
Majority of the domain, if you are good at it, I think it will give you plenty of opportunities.
Got it. No, fair. Thanks for sharing that. I think it's a tricky question and comes up every now and then, so I thought we'd take it up. Um,
Yeah.
we do have a question in the from the audience, which I think is a one we also have heard before, is if you can share some tips for defense officers who are trying to join PM roles. Now, that is something that we have seen a fair amount of defense professionals after working in various type of roles that they have there and transitioning to the private sector. They want to work, whether it's IT or sometimes non-IT sectors, but in project program management roles. Edward, would love to hear your thoughts.
Super. It's a wonderful question, right? I was expecting question would come in. See, defense officer, if you see the nature of that particular experience, right? They are in places of resilience, crisis, where it demands leadership, sometimes servant leadership, sometimes very critical situation leadership. uh, they are very quick and very methodical in terms of decision making, and obviously, like, okay, they come from a very fit, from a mind and physical environment, right? So what happens is, when you look at this as the nature of the experience which they bring in, right? And you will also have to match, like, okay, which are all the sectors probably in the technology areas, okay, where this kind of, because I'm a big believer of what is your core personality or nature, right? Or a majority of experience where you sit in. So how that you can see a match into newer area, into private sector, especially in technology. So especially in telecom, in IT, you will find places where, especially in program management kind of roles or delivery management kind of roles, these people, defense people, like, okay, will be able to excel. So especially in terms of global SI providers, right? Like your Tech Mahindra, your Infosys, TCS, HCL Tech, Capgemini, right? All of that. So if you see, they will typically be aligned by your geos. Then you will have horizontal your technology teams, right? And they will have horizontal delivery teams. And then, like, okay, you will also have your vertical teams, right? So you will find under each geo, you will find vertical delivery organization, which will be having two types. One is your excuse me, in terms of program and your transformation management kind of organization. And then you will have your delivery management organization. So they can get into telecom IT infrastructure kind of profiles, and especially in terms of your regulated sectors, your healthcare, life sciences, your federal reserve kind of projects, like, okay, in US, or kind of environments, like, okay, which you have in India, maybe in the Indian market. So telecom, IT infrastructure, right? Very specifically to environments which are government or regulated industries. These are the areas where defense people, right, getting into PM program management roles will be very asked. Why? Because those environment have literally the kind of environment what would go through in a defense kind of an environment. So will be an easy match in terms of for them. So there will be very little amount of a change management they will have to go and do it to get acclimatized in that environment.
Understood. Sheshadri, would you like to add anything? I think Edward covered it fairly comprehensively, but feel free to share any additional things that you might have.
Yeah, yeah. Couple of things, I would say. So first of all, mostly the, public sector or government related roles, and those kind of projects could be more suitable for, defense, sector. Even if you are, getting a projects like which maybe belongs to HAL or, NALCO, or some of those kind of, projects which maybe, comes to any kind of Indian, IT sector. Or I'm not saying, only you need to go to the IT sector. Even non-IT, there are a lot of defense companies nowadays, those are actually coming up. They need a non-IT, kind of, environment as a project, manager over there. So you can look at it. Second, I would say, like, a niche, area where, maybe you can think of like a, change management kind of role, where, there is a process kind of tools or the framework. This is there, just like a PMI, we can say like PMP as a, some kind of framework. So this is something which is like a change management, environment, where, you are coming from a very, good background of a defense background. So some of the leadership roles which may, exist into those kind of, environment, you may be more suitable for that one. But again, I'm saying it depends on your interest and the motivation that you should first keep in mind before you start, applying, or before you start thinking of joining any organization.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we've covered that one fairly well. Just one last thing, and then I think we should be ready to wrap things up. Just what's the one most effective job search strategy that, as a person on the other side of the table, who's helping potentially hire other PMs, what is the one most effective job search strategy that both of you have seen, and why do you think it is effective? Especially in the current job market, that where you have mostly employer driven market, and it's very hard to stand out because of the crowdedness of candidates. Edward, we'll start with you, but feel free to take a moment to think about it.
Good, good question. Uh, what I have come across and I've seen from my experiences, people who stand out are people like who have uh, shown very clearly, either in the interview or probably in the resume, or when they were talking, they were able to call out 4 5 starting areas which made them stand out. Right, one is your so when they talk about their program or transformation stories, right, especially in terms of what did they change, right, from past to new, right. It could be a ERP rollout, or could be a CRM rollout, it could be a probably a service management rollout, or it could be maybe a martech application rollout, or maybe a maybe a banking application rollout. But connecting people, money, or business metrics along with technology, how they are able to uh, tell a story about what changed, right. Okay, so that stands out. So transformation stories. Second is in terms of leadership examples. So it's showing that, like, okay, there were situations where they had to handle conflicts, complexity, ambiguity, decision making, collaboration, stakeholder management, uh, in very complex, large rollouts, which involves obviously multiple aspects at every milestone. That makes it stand out very clearly. And then what is that extra which they did in terms of artifacts, right? Which they created out of their own interest, or a situation or a need, and nobody told them, and they took an initiative to go and create maybe a dashboard, or maybe a model, or probably a roadmap, right, or maybe some kind of a compliance stuff, right. But what are those artifacts, like, okay, which they so which shows initiative at the same time, creativity, right. Then about, like, okay, it comes about your case studies, right. So in terms of how you are able to structure your, it could be a resume or it could be a story, say that this was the problem I had, this is the action I did, and this is the outcome I delivered, right. It could be a technology transformation, or it could be a business transformation, but when you're able to structure and tell case studies about what are the uh, kind of work, project, or program which you did before, right. And then finally, I would say, like, okay, metrics, right, how you're able to quantify that impact, whether it is a technology metrics or business metrics, how you're able to quantify the impact. So if you are able to say that from idea to impact, you are able to drive all of this, and they're able to articulate it well, both in resume and as well as, like, okay, when they're doing the interview, that makes it very stands out. And obviously, uh, 90% of the people fail in articulation, right, fail in storytelling, right, because you get that initial 5 10 minutes to get them hooked up, right. And you have to be very clear about what is the story which you want to tell, and which is unique to you, and it's only personalized to you, right. So that's what I would say.
Fair. Shishadri, same question.
Yeah, very shortly, a couple of things, whatever is the point you are putting at, as Edward suggested, so put some kind of data behind it. Do not put just like a more like a generic kind of lines over there, that I have done so and so project and it has reduced the time, or it has increased the efficiency. No, that kind of things doesn't work in a perfect manner. So more data driven kind of storytelling may matter. Second, I would say obviously skill set and how you have applied. Somebody has may write, I'm having a skill set of AI like so and so tools and stuff like that, that is fine. But maybe in your storytelling, how you have applied some of the tools into your project, so that actually matters. The last thing which I would suggest, I see a lot of people having mindset of like a lottery kind of mindset, like they have prepared a CV and they can apply like a 500 jobs a month or so. So your CV should be, as per the job requirement, rather than a more like a generic, kind of CV, without actually looking at what they are asking for. So a lot of people think like, okay, if I apply like a 100 jobs, so I'll get eventually 10 jobs.
Yeah.
So something like that, they're having a lottery kind of mindset. So don't be, that mindset, but rather than, be more specific, be as per the
Yeah.
requirement. I would not suggest us, what should be, you should write or you should not write. There is nothing wrong or right, but what is the audience, what kind of, job profile they are looking at, please customize your CV, according to that, with some data and with some kind of skill set. So that is my, 2 cent from my side.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think very practical, very real time insights both of you have shared today. Also, we covered things that more like a higher level landscape changes, macro changes that are happening, as well as more on the ground, practical, granular things that people can do to really update themselves, evolve their profiles to align better with these tectonic shifts happening in the landscape. So thank you both, and thank you to everybody who was able to join us and ask some questions here. This session has been recorded, so we'll be sharing it within the broader community. Feel free to reach out to either Shishadri or to Edward on our platform, which is mypivot.work. You can have one-on-one sessions with them to get more personalized and detailed feedback if you'd like on how to achieve your career goals, especially in PM, tech PM roles. And yeah, apart from that, I just again have a special thanks for both the speakers. You were really brilliant in terms of pointing out specific actionable steps that people can take to achieve goals. So thanks for that. With that, we have come to the end for today's session, and I hope everybody has a great rest of the evening. Thank you again.
Thank you, Arjun. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Arjun. Thank you,
Bye.
Edward, as well.
Thank you,
Thank you.